I don't think I would ever be able to agree that Denmark is a more capitalist country.
I don't think they regulate as much from what I've seen. They have more options. Like we have like three options.
I will
here.
say you do a lot of what I've seen, or I think. So I think to an extent that you know that you don't.
Because that's all that matters.
Well, I don't like debates.
Do you believe in the old adage of keep your friends close while your enemies closer?
It's not like he's trying to warm up to him and chat with them. He's gone beyond it to the point where like he's pushing Russian disinformation. How much of Europe do you think that Russia would have to take over before you feel like that's too much? It seems like you are a little more pro-Russia than you're leading on. I think they've been scrambling to figure out like how do they match a force like Donald Trump, a charismatic celebrity that's willing to like really outright lie. What's up, brother?
I'm a computer programming language. That's
I have no idea. There's a lot of noise for you in the chat. I was trying to look into you, but they just say that you're a computer
I guess people
programmer.
like me.
Are you a content creator?
No, I just debate the Trump shit a lot.
Ooh, shit. Why don't you make a content
People
creation?
that hate me want me to come up. It's wild.
That's crazy. You should make content then if you're going to do all this. Why not just make like a content page?
I don't know. I don't want to be like I like turn into like Dean and Parker and just be like focus on money.
Well, I mean, money is important, right? Let's be real.
I guess. I like your videos though. I thought you were a red pillar, to be honest.
You thought I was a red pillar?
Shit. Yeah. I saw like some of your like more like racially charged videos, and I was like, oh, okay.
Like the joke videos that I make.
Yeah.
You know, I've turned away from that a little bit. I think that politics is very important right now. I like jokes, but I've always been more progressive leaning. So
yeah, I feel. Yeah, I thought when I saw you on here, I was amazed. But
all right.
I heard you said earlier about the individual mandate and Trump like getting rid of the individual mandate with the affordable or with the Tax Cut and Job Act. I don't know how you could see that as like a negative.
I mean, it depends on if you support some form of universal healthcare. I would see it as a negative because it's generally the idea is to get everybody on healthcare so that it would overall reduce costs of the healthcare for people in general. That's like, so it's really just like young people paying for older people's healthcare, and then as they get older, having that pay for them as well.
But they're paying into it. Like everyone pays into it, and young people don't particularly make a ton of money. So you're going to be having people in like the middle, like the millennial era, like 30s to 60s, paying the majority of it because they make the majority of the money. But they're still paying into it. They're just not taking from it, and they're not tax penalizing them from not having health care. That's all the individual mandate was doing.
Well, yeah, but again, I agree with the tax penalizing of it. I mean, I would agree with a more reformed universal healthcare system. But this was kind of like the first step there. And so that's kind of the fundamental is everybody pays into it, even if they don't need it as much. And this way, older people and more sick people are going to be able to utilize it in a more affordable rate based on how much money that they make. Right? Like that's
arguably the people that would be penalized would be the people who couldn't afford private health care, don't qualify for state health care or federal health care, and then are just screwed and they just have to take the tax penalty because it's the lesser amount. And the money, the revenue gained from it, I mean, it was like $3 million a year.
Which
is like nothing. Yeah, according to the tax foundation. We're taxing people making under $75,000 a year who don't pay into the tax system virtually at all, and they don't pay into the Social Security system virtually at all, or the Medicaid system virtually at all. So it just seems beneficial to allow these people to not be penalized and not hold health care if they wish. This is gradually taking less resources from the Social Security and the Medicare systems, and just seems ultimately beneficial for everyone included.
Sorry, I'm trying to like you threw a lot at me there. What? Sorry, just repeat that to me. Sorry,
Basically, that people making this threshold of money pay nothing into the system at all anyway, and if they throw nothing into it and they're taking nothing from it, it seems beneficial.
So
what do you need the source?
What do you mean they're throwing? Because you mentioned people under $75,000 a year don't contribute to the system. Is that what you're saying?
They don't contribute to the system meaningfully. No.
$75,000 a year. I mean, I could understand your point that if a young person doesn't make a lot of money, then the penalization might be very burdening to them. Sure, that's a fair point. I mean, I understand.
I mean, like the percentage of income. Like, do you agree that the majority of our tax revenue to the government would be from people making a lot more than $75,000 in the millions of dollars a year, and that's who pays all the taxes? Is like the rich,
well, sure. So the
earners.
last thing I looked at is when Donald Trump proposed like the $150,000 a year, like nobody pays taxes. I looked into how much taxes we collect on people making $150,000 a year and less. And
it's not much.
The general, the estimation is between 30 and 40% of our tax revenue comes from that. So it's.
I don't know. I mean,
literally, that's what.
Because I know half.
I
know if I took the American workforce and I cut it in half, and I don't tax the bottom half of the American workforce, we would lose $40 billion a year, or 2.3% of federal revenues, which I think is nothing. I think we could.
Okay, well, we're not talking about bottom half though. We're talking about like a financial.
I don't know what it cuts it off at.
I mean, that's probably true. We also have massive wealth inequality, but generally speaking, like, yeah, people who make 200 or 100, was it $150,000 and less make up about a third of the amount of tax revenue that we generate, about $2 trillion a year. Yeah.
I would question it. I would see. I would like to see.
You should look into it, because I looked into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But if you need the source of like who's paying the penalties, it's the tax foundation. Households earning 75,000 or less paid the majority of individual mandate penalties. Yeah, I mean, they're saying that the total amount of reported individual mandate penalties, 2018 was the last year, $3 million. I mean, that's, it's a drop in the bucket. But then the average penalty was $800, which I think that's a significant amount for people making under $75,000. I mean, I don't make under $75,000, but it's probably significant.
Sure, just give me like a second. I'm just taking a look.
Yeah, I'm good.
At like how much money they were generating for that. So from what I'm seeing, it says that it would have been about $4 billion annually from the individual mandate, In
penalties? There's no way.
These are the initial projections. Sorry, I'm just like reading through different things. Good rough estimate, let's see.
This is just what I'm getting.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is wrong or not. I mean, I don't see the political motive in lying, but
no. I mean, like, it sounds like what you're saying. It would be a low amount of money. I mean, you could counter argue and say that because there was a penalty in general, those people were actually getting healthcare and paying into the system, and so that's why there were so few people.
But they're not paying into the public system; they're paying into the private system. You're forcing them to do this.
Well, just to be clear, so if the argument, because I don't know if your statistic is right or not, but if the people who can afford healthcare, even if it's more expensive than the mandate, I would imagine would be more incentivized to get healthcare. And so if the collection money was low, it would be because the only people that weren't doing it didn't have the money for healthcare, which, by the way, would be a disaffected class. But I'd also argue if they're already that low, that they probably would qualify for some kind of like Obamacare or universal healthcare or whatever it's called, Affordable Care Act shit. But yeah, I
don't see them paying into the system. Are you referring to like you want them to pay into like the Medicare, Medicaid system, or just pay into the healthcare system in general? So
the idea in general, in an ideal world, like everybody would just pay into a healthcare system that we would all utilize. So I mean, like Medicare for all would be fine, or some kind of a public healthcare option. But that was the idea, is to pay into that system. It was a decentive to not have healthcare. So it's like, we're going to tax you if you don't have healthcare. So you have more of an inclination to get healthcare, and then those costs, generally speaking and ideally, would be distributed amongst everybody, so that people who made less money or were older would be able to get healthcare affordably for their
I get it, but the idea would be is that like we're not. I mean, we could talk like what we should do, and I like talking about that, I guess. But if we're talking about what currently is, and we realize that we don't have that kind of system, but we have a system that only people within specific income thresholds utilize these public services. I don't see what the benefit of forcing someone into a private market to ultimately be like just ripped off does for virtually anybody. Do
you support the creation of a public healthcare market?
Not really. I don't know. I mean, the entailments are work in some instances of smaller nations, like Nordic countries. I think it actually probably works pretty well.
Sure, I understand that.
But then if we took it to the landmass of the United States, and the amount of people in the United States,
we don't have to worry about the landmass necessarily, because there's a lot of like unused land. I understand what you're saying, though. That is a massive like we are a massive country compared to every other one of our countries or allied countries that do universal healthcare, and so there's still a level of risk, and I totally understand that. The reason I wanted to ask you if you were in support of a public option is because I think that I would make the argument that you're not necessarily for any type of some form of healthcare option that would be universal. And that was what the first step was. So I would say the biggest reason why we did Obamacare was because it was palatable. It wasn't perfect. It was still utilizing the private market to too much of a degree. But that's the only way that you could really sell it. The next step would be to hopefully, introduce a public market that competes with a private market, so that they can potentially pull those prices down and see what is better. I think at the very least, having a public market, being competitive with these private markets would be great, because there is massive markup of a lot of these drugs arbitrarily.
Well, I don't know if it's arbitrarily. It's just because of the massive barriers to entry, like set by the United States government, probably. Like the massive regulations.
Probably that's lots of words doing a lot of leg room. I would say that if we opened up our ability to buy medications from Canada, we'd probably have a very different system, because the private markets would feel the need that they would need to adjust. I understand it's not just
It would
medications,
still
but
be increased in price, not even like arbitrarily. It would be increased in price because of the cost associated with bringing a drug to market in America versus like another country. The best example is like Denmark. They have a very, or at least a more capitalist system than we do, on their market for like drugs and stuff.
Yeah,
But
I'm sure they have
they're-
more. But are they taxed at like better rates than we?
Yeah, no, but they have a full universal system over there. But if you look at like Ozempic, which is created there, and that's a big thing now, is how much Ozempic costs versus here versus there. I mean, it's like a fraction of the amount there, and they have a full universal healthcare system. So I think there's something
how much
happening.
Does it
I don't
cost?
think
How
it's
much
just
does it
more
cost?
profit.
How much does it cost in Denmark?
I forget. It was like significantly.
I
less.
just feel like
Bernie,
that's not true.
Bernie Sanders yapping about it.
So in Denmark, a monthly supply of Ozempic costs about $122.
Yeah, what is it here? Like 1,000 something?
Yeah, so they pay like significantly less. I thought you said they paid more. Did I
No,
mishear?
they pay less.
Oh,
Less.
okay. So
Sorry,
yeah.
Like, it's significantly less.
Well, yeah, I imagine they pay significantly less because they have more restrictions on your ability to like mark up prices significantly.
I think it's that, but I don't think that's true. I think it's that their healthcare system is just simply just more capitalist, and that maybe it could be like it could be true that there's
but
more
that country
government subsidies.
is objectively more, I guess you'd say, democratic socialist than us. So I don't think it'd be more capitalist.
Well, it's their drug markets are more capitalist.
What makes them more capitalist if they have?
Yeah, they just allow for more competition.
Ozempic. You're saying I don't think I would ever be able to agree that Denmark is a more capitalist country than America.
Just in that specific, no,
just
not
in the healthcare market.
Just talking about their healthcare systems. That they're the way that they like they don't. I don't think they regulate as much from what I've seen, and that they have more options. Like we have like three options.
I will
here.
say you do a lot of like what I've seen, or I think when you do have these conversations. So I think to an extent that you know that you don't,
because that's all that matters.
Well, I don't like debates. I like conversations. So if you're giving me a lot of I thinks and maybes and you're saying stuff like that, it leads me to believe that you're more of a debater than a conversationalist, we'll say.
Well, I do both. But if I've seen like multiple articles, like or
Yes.
seen like multiple things like compelling me to believe something,
Sure.
I'm
Well,
gonna say, like, this is, like,
what I'm seeing with
100% true,
Ozempic
just, from what I've
is
seen.
that their negotiated drug prices with government, they have government subsidies, negotiated drug prices. They just have a better healthcare system in general. I mean, part of it is if they have a public option, right? If they're a public healthcare system, they're able to bargain with how much they're actually going to pay per particular cost. So we don't really have that here to the same degree. We do have Medicare and Medicaid, but if we had an expansion on that, like we could say, hey, we'll only pay this much for the drug, and if they won't take it, we could also import the drug if we needed to. But that would be a significant bargaining chip. If we had a public option that a lot of people opted into, it'd be like, well, we're only going to pay this much, and then we could kind of come and settle in the middle in some capacity.
Well, I think that's what we should do. Yeah, I think that Medicare should, and Medicare and Medicaid should negotiate drug prices similarly to like what the market would already do. The reason they don't do that could be a reason why the healthcare drugs are so expensive in the first place. But I forgot what we were talking about. But yeah, I think.
I mean, there's probably, to give you more really ammunition. One of the reasons why it might be so expensive in America too is that we are very fat. So, and a lot of people are going on different GLP-1s, we'll call them, for weight, which could potentially, and I don't know if this is true, but could potentially, clog up the system. You know what I mean? Like if there's a massive demand,
I think that hurts a lot of stuff. I think that hurts our healthcare industry. I think there's obviously our melting pot or genetic differences in all of our people more so than other nations.
I mean, maybe. I think we're also just very fat and lazy over here, and we're also a very large nation. Well, from what I'm seeing is there's a lack of price negotiation in the United States government, that they have patents on drugs, which allows them to spend an extraordinary amount of money until those are gone, to inflate the price. There's also like shitty business practices where they'll target factories that create genetics once those copyrights are gone, or whatever the fuck word I use so far, patents are gone, and they'll just pay them to not produce GLP-1 alternatives. And there's massive profits. We're a very profit-driven healthcare system. That's because of capitalism in an unchecked way.
I don't actually mind that.
You don't mind unchecked? I
think we need profit motives to create.
I think that there's a difference between a profit motive and a profit motive that is destructive, right? Like I'm cool with profits, but I think that there are some industries that are not going to really be able to be competitive enough for you to just be like, oh, hey, introduce this or that or the other thing. Especially if you do have a patent on a drug, that's going to give you the ability to corner the market. So that's literally not capitalism right off the bat.
Maybe that's the issue. Maybe we should get rid of the
patents. Well, then you come into the problem with like, why would they invest in drug creation if you don't have a patent? And then you get into like, okay, that's why you need government subsidies to create the drugs.
Well, that could apply to like a lot of things. Like
Sure.
why would someone enter like the I don't know, like let me think, like the food market? Like everyone can make pizza, but like my pizza's better than your pizza.
Well,
type
yeah,
deal.
but you don't have a patent on making pizzas in general, and that's one of the
Yeah,
problems.
so
with
then you won't
healthcare
have the
with drugs.
patent on making like Ozempic, but my Ozempic will be more effective than your Ozempic.
Sure, I agree with that. But then the question is if you don't allow patents in the United States when it comes to like these different drugs, what are the incentives for these private industries to even invest in creating the drugs in the first place?
Well, because that'd be like the profit motive.
Sure, but they aren't going to have a drastic profit motive like anymore because they invest in the drug. They don't have a patent. Anybody else after they do all the
Well, this would
research
apply
could
to
just.
every industry.
Well, yeah, but
if we completely get rid of the patent office, this would apply to every industry.
I'm
so
not
then
necessarily
I would say
saying
that
let's get
people
rid
would
of
still be
patent.
just as incentives.
So just to be clear, I'm not saying we should get rid of patents in general. I'm fine with it when it comes to certain markets, but when it comes to the healthcare market, this is totally different. There's a difference between like creating the fushigi, which is not a non-essential item, versus like medications, and so there is a huge problem when it comes to it. Like patents are antithetical to capitalism, I would say, kind of generally speaking, because you literally corner the market. You have a piece of paper that says, I corner the market. And it makes sense. You invested all the time, energy, and effort into it. Without that patent, you could spend billions of dollars into creating something, and then, you come out the other side and somebody just makes it because now you have, the special sauce for it. And they make a bunch of money off of your work. And so that's why, like, in the private healthcare or in healthcare industries in general, like, that's why we should really focus on patents more, or excuse me, we should focus more on government subsidies to create these medications because this is an essential market. The fushigi market is not an essential market. I would say that's really why capitalism works great, just not for healthcare, in my opinion.
I don't think patents are what prove this increased incentive to enter a market. I don't think that's true at all.
Well, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I said it.
Well, I think absent patents, we
artificially
still have just as much incentive, and we just as much investment.
What?
Given the nature of, I don't think they're making this much money.
They're making tremendous amounts of money.
Well, yeah, but I don't think they're making that much money because they have the patent. Because there's obviously going to be some level of competition. How little it is,
but there can't be competition because they have a patent. That's a problem.
They don't make like same drug. They just make something different. That's
I know, but they
virtually
can't.
the same.
But it would have the patent would cover the specific way that you handle a problem.
Well, I don't know, like,
right?
what's your
So
example
the
of, like, a patent?
So it was like they have a patent on like Ozempic. So like a GLP-1 is going to cause your body to create more insulin. I think it's like in your pancreas or something.
There's not different Ozempic options. Like
there are different GLP-1s, and there's still
yeah.
There's like Wegovy, there's Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound. There are a lot of alternatives, and generics are starting to come out. Absolutely, but there still are.
It's not the same shit, aren't they?
For the most part, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so then that's the competition.
I think yes, but I think that there's still a massive profit issue there. Like there's still
I don't care how much profit they're making. I think that
there's a multifaceted issue. One of those would be patents, which are going to artificially inflate the price of the drug, and then of course there's going to be another issue of like generally speaking, these drugs are very expensive, and they don't need to be that expensive because there are massive profit motives that are to a degree that is disproportionate, and it's a very necessary drug.
What do you think makes them so expensive here?
I think because they can make it that expensive.
You don't think it has anything to do with any like the like hoops and like barriers that they have to jump through to get these like drugs to market?
Well, no, because I would imagine Denmark has more hoops and barriers, and they still their price of Ozempic is a fraction of the cost of Ozempic in the United States.
Well, if it's state controlled, I mean, just like purely like in America, assume like add all the costs to make this drug. Do you think it's more expensive in America or less expensive in America compared to like Denmark?
To create it in America?
Just to not like produce it. I mean, just like bring it to market.
I don't know if I understand the question. Sorry. Like, what is exactly
do you think it'd be more expensive in America to like take like the idea that I have to make Ozempic, produce it, get like all the testing that the United States government wants and all the
Are you saying, do I think that there are more like barriers to release a drug to market in the United States because we have more? I think we probably have less regulation than I think we have less regulation than Denmark, so probably not. I think a lot of it is just a profit incentive. I think that like we have a healthcare system that allows people to make money off of dying people.
I don't know. I think this applies mostly to, like in every like sort of capitalist nation, but I think that it would be more expensive. Given like all the maybe not just like this specific country like Denmark, but just in general that it is very expensive to bring drugs to market, and it probably shouldn't be. It shouldn't nearly be.
Well, so what I'm hearing is that you're saying that you think the majority of the issue is that we are too regulated in the United States, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
I again, like if we're comparing to Denmark with more regulation than us and they're succeeding better when it comes to their healthcare market, I would say that just based on that, that's obviously not true. Their prices are like we pay like 7 times more for our Ozempic than they do maybe even 8 times more.
Yeah, but I guess we could never look into like the profit differences. I would doubt that the profit.
I imagine
differences
that
are,
it's a
like,
significant profit difference. Probably significant.
Oh yeah, like it's probably like more money for sure.
I
would
it
doubt
might
that it's like
cost more
7
to
times, 8 times as
Well,
much though.
so just to be clear, we pay 8 times more for Ozempic in the United States than they do in Denmark. That's the only point that I was making. Do I think it might cost more to produce in the United States? That might be true. But going from 122 in Denmark to 968 in America is absolutely there's no justification for it. Maybe it would be $200 in America, but there's absolutely no way. And I would mention that a significant amount of that is profit incentives, 100%, of course.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I mean,
I think it is.
It doesn't make any sense to do such a thing.
Why? If they could charge the amount of money, especially with the Ozempic craze, why wouldn't they?
It's that they can't though.
They can.
So if everyone's charging a similar amount for like a drug, like these whatever the fuck these Wegovy and all the other ones, if they're all charging like a similar amount, I think I'm at least like justified in believing that this is like around the price with a little bit of profit that it takes to, or just enough profit to bring these drugs to market. Because I don't know why like Wegovy or whatever the other ones are called wouldn't like undercut everyone else to capture more market share, assuming these drugs have similar effects.
So my
Unless
understanding,
they're like cartel style monopolying.
Yeah. So I'm trying to look into how much it costs. It costs $5 to make in America, and so they're charging $1,000. So I don't think that there's any other justification for charging that much money other than an incredibly
to make. I'm not talking about to make.
Well, that's a big part of it, though. If you cost $5
like
to
insulin
make,
costs like $5, 5 cents, whatever it is to make it, but
Yeah.
they charge a lot more. So what does it
well,
cost?
right, because why
to
are they
bring
doing
it
that?
to market?
I couldn't imagine that it costs $900 to bring to market.
No, I mean like in general, like how much does it cost for all like the government shit involved? I mean, the production is always going to be nothing for drugs, but there's a lot of like red tape that's included.
Right. So I don't think that there's enough red tape in the market to inflate the price of Ozempic from $5 to create to $968. I understand that there's still infrastructure. Like you have to get it there. You have to get it there cold because it needs to stay refrigerated. You have to pay a bunch of people in the pipeline. To the degree that it's $968, doubtful. In general, I very highly doubt that it's going to cost that much money.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll never know. I think there is enough. I think there is enough red tape to maybe not like the whole 1,000, but it's going to be pretty significant.
Well, I would say that generally speaking, the cutting of red tape is what led to the 2007 Great Recession. So I think that we probably there needs to be a level of regulation, but not to such an extraordinary degree. Or excuse me, not to. There needs to be a level of regulation. There's probably is overburdening regulation in some instances, but I don't think that our healthcare market suffers from overregulation. I don't think the answer to our problem of capitalism is to introduce more capitalism.
Well, no, I think that at least like normatively, like and introducing more capitalism is pretty good, and I find that as capitalist as a market could be would be like the most beneficial or the most ethical, I guess.
I guess if you say so, I disagree, but all right, well. I appreciate the conversation,
For sure.
All right. And listen, next time you got to record it and make your own YouTube channel, right?
No. It's too much work.
All right. Well, you sound like a liberal now, okay?
Yeah, I am.
All right. Take care, all right?
See ya.
Peace out.
Hello? I should be good now.
You are? What's up?
All right, perfect. Not too bad, man. How are you?
Not too bad. What do you got for me today?
I don't know. I was coming in with maybe a little bit of a different perspective than most people would have.
Shit.
Just because I am from Canada.
All right, cool.
So what I want to talk about is how in the past I was a pretty big Trump supporter.
Mhm.
And I was trying to think about why is that.
Okay.
And I think the main reason is because it just comes down to that Trump is for his own country. So like here in Canada, we have Trudeau, and Trudeau isn't the greatest representative of his own people. I think the objective of a prime minister / president should be to protect and serve your country, right?
Sure. Do you feel like Trump's doing that here?
I would say to a degree, for sure.
Oh, I think I would disagree with that, generally speaking.
Okay. I would say I think it's definitely making big waves on the immigration.
He's definitely making big waves on the immigration. Sure, I generally disagree with like shutting the border down. I'm an advocate for the asylum seeking process. I wish he would try to fix that. I wish that he would. Yeah, that's it. I wish he would put more energy into fixing the asylum seeking process rather than just like shutting everything down or doing his best to shut everything down.
Right. Yeah, I just struggle with. I guess for the most part, I like Trump, but coming from the Canadian perspective, where he's really screwed us over in the last couple of months, It definitely does change my opinion, but I try to
Okay.
look at it from an American perspective, where maybe I would have a more favorable look towards him.
Sure. Okay, so you liked Trump because you felt like he was an advocate for his own people, and you're president or prime minister, whatever the fuck you guys call it.
Yeah,
Apparently Trump calls it the governor, but you don't like it because he's having a negative impact on you. Okay, I mean, does that change your
right.
perspective on the way that he operates and handles business?
I mean, the thing I don't think it does. Like then again, it doesn't bother me unless it affects me, right? And now it's starting to like affect me directly. I guess it always has, but like it's like way worse than it was previously. But like I respect Donald Trump because he's there. He advocates for his own people, and that's something that I look forward to, or like that I would like, especially bringing jobs back to America supposedly.
Yeah. Well,
Like Indian
part of
immigration.
supposedly bringing jobs back to America is getting them out of your country, because if we
Yeah,
produce more
no, that's
here,
the
that
thing.
would hurt
That's
your
the thing.
country. Yeah.
Like it's tough because like I do like that idea, but it's tough because then I am affected by that because
Yeah.
I live in Canada.
Yeah,
So
I get what you're saying. I don't think that a lot of the promises Trump has made are particularly realistic. Getting jobs back to America. I do understand the concept of making more jobs in America. And I think a lot of people are seeing jobs disappear because they are, right? And I think
Right.
we're very often go like, well, they're going to other countries.
Right.
And I understand like a lot of the tariff, like some of the tariffs you guys have like on like dairy products, that's to protect your farmers. But most of the jobs that are going away because either extraordinarily cheap labor from like China or technology. We have a huge technological boom. Nobody's talking about it. No politician specifically is talking about it vocally enough. But that's why jobs are disappearing. And so even if we brought all the jobs that are going to China back to America, people aren't going to work those jobs. Very quickly, you're going to see those factories fully automated, which is just going to be more money for rich people. And so I understand it's one of those things where sometimes it's better to do something than nothing at all. And so I can appreciate that. But his policies are terrible. Like tariffing every country in the world at the same time, just optically, is a complete idiot move.
Yeah,
But
that is not ideal.
it's just stupid, and it destroys foreign relations, which is why we have trade deals, and some of them probably aren't favorable for us. And he negotiated the last trade deal with your country, and then he called it stupid. So he's kind of an idiot for that.
Right.
But like, there's a reason that we don't really like countries exist, but like everyday countries, we change. We have a world economy now, and it's a good thing that we're all tied up in each other because it reduces the chance that we're going to fight each other. I like the idea of it. It gives us different influence over each other. It makes us allies. It makes us more willing to work together and cooperate. Less violence around the world generally, I would say. The more that you trade with a country, the less I would imagine you're going to want to have conflict. But he's not going about things the right way. I don't like the idea of assassinating every single like trade relation with all of our strongest allied countries who would go to war with us on the tip of a hat if they had to. But we're not really reciprocating that, and I think it's very frustrating.
Yeah, and there's always been this lingering fact amongst Canadians is that like the US will never hurt us because we're too important, or not important, but like there's the geopolitical like implications of.
Well, you're like
Canada
our literal strongest ally. You're our closest,
exactly, especially geographic.
Yeah,
like the geographic is a huge.
That's
thing.
a big reason why you are like one of our strongest, really our strongest ally, because you're right above us. You're our hat, we call it.
Yeah,
but you're right
Another
above
thing
us.
I would like to point out from the Canadian perspective is like this whole. I saw it in your YouTube chat as well. Like this whole fentanyl thing. Like I don't like that. It's something that's pretty bothersome.
That's very stupid.
That is not
Listen,
a problem at all.
It's so funny, and I don't think that people understand this. But Donald, so just to give like a timeline for especially people listening, we really have no reason to ever even engage in a trade war with you guys, because the first reason was Donald Trump said that we had. Oh, sorry, my TikTok is going like that's weird. It goes like idle sometimes. It's weird. TikTok a lot has a strange start. The first thing that happened was Trump said that the trade negotiation was horrible. We had a horrible trade deal with Canada and Mexico. It was terrible. Whoever negotiated was a moron. Then it came out that he was the one who negotiated with. He remembered. It didn't even come out. He remembered. It was like, oh, wait a minute. I was the one to do that. So after that came out, the strategy changed. It changed to like, there's fentanyl coming across the border. You guys need to do more. And I watched Justin Trudeau talk about how he did like $1.3 billion into border wall, protections, which were unnecessary because you can only throw money at a problem to such a degree. And so I imagine that 1.3 billion was not very efficiently used. Like it's only so much you can really do. We really need to focus more on like why we're consuming it so much, but that's a different conversation. But you guys still did it. You guys still did it. And he still trade warred you guys. So he's just looking to fight. I don't know why exactly, Maybe he thinks he could bully better deals. Maybe like super conspiracy brain, he really loves Russia so much he's trying to cripple European and other Western nations. Maybe he's just really trying to look like he's incredibly effective. Maybe he's actually trying to solve the problem and he thinks that he's going to fix all the world's problems or America's problems if he negotiates these trade deals. It's hard to say because he lies so much about like everything and the amount of tariffs. Like he was talking about the dairy tariffs the other day. And it's like there are dairy tariffs, but they don't lock in until, we've sold a certain amount to you guys so you can protect your farmers. Mm-hmm. So it's just, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Right. Yeah, and then there's just another thing I want to touch on quickly with you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about like Russia, and I hear a bunch of people on social media and in the news talking about how Trump is turning to Putin's side and trying to become best friends with him. Now, I look at that as, do you believe in the old adage of keep your friends closer, but your enemies even closer? Like you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand the adage. I don't think it applies here because like it's a little different because this is I understand what you're saying. Keep tabs on your enemies. I understand that. The problem is it's not like he's trying to warm up to him and chat with him. He's gone beyond it to the point where like he's pushing Russian disinformation about Ukraine. He's spouted a lot of Russian disinformation about how Ukraine would have been squashed in 3 days without the United States help. That's something that Russia says constantly to demean Ukraine. He's talked about how he's given them we've given them $300 billion, which is not true. It's like $120 billion. And then pretended that we lost it. He said that Zelensky's a dictator, despite the fact for literally just to make it seem like he's a bad person because they aren't holding elections because they're in the middle of a war. Despite the fact that Russia's a dictator, he said the approval ratings were 4%. Zelensky's approval ratings were like 57%. He says a lot of things that are very anti-Ukraine and nothing that's negative about Russia, who is a dictator. That's a dictatorship that assassinates political opponents. And so it's one thing to be like, hey, let's like buddy up and see where we can go and do trade. It's another thing to actively run disinformation campaigns against the first line of defense against World War III. And that's what Ukraine is. And that's why we need to continue to support them. Because if we stop supporting them, that will empower Russia to just try to push through Eastern Europe.
Fair. Now, do you continue or do you support like the continued like investment in Ukraine?
Oh, 1,000%. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's fair. Like,
me personally, this is one of the things I always criticize Democrats for, is they won't just say, yes, I'm for endless war. Like I don't really want endless war, but I will, if I were president, I would give Ukraine as much money as they needed because they're doing us a service. No Americans are dying. Most of the money we give them is through old discarded military infrastructure anyway. Not most of it, but a lot of it. Other amounts of money we give them is us, making new weapons and, really stimulating the American economy to send stuff over to them. And again, no Americans have to die. And so like they want to fight for their territory. Russia's one invading. We give Ukraine everything that they want. I would give them more. And it would be absolutely not even have them pay it back because they're doing us a service. Like I think we've all spent $20 a month for the past 3 years on Ukraine. That's like an elite package, monthly subscription to Netflix or something. I think we can survive doing that.
That's fair. Like the thing I think about it though is of course it has very important geopolitical aspects. You want to keep Russia away from Western Europe.
Yeah.
But also couldn't that money be spent better in other places such as potentially education, healthcare in the United States?
Well, just to be clear, conservatives do not give a fuck about education or healthcare at all. Donald Trump, because I know you're from Canada, so I mean I'm not educated on any of your stuff, and you're probably also like similar when it comes to our stuff. Maybe you're more educated on our stuff than I am of yours. I don't know. But he's trying to cut the Department of Education, right? And that's like a huge issue. So the Department of Education really is just like a federal funding for states who need funding for schooling. And they give them suggestions and guidelines on like how to interact. And he's trying to cut that. And what he's trying to say is like the test scores have stagnated or even slightly dropped in some areas since it was instituted in 1979, but we're going to say 1980. And so they're saying, well, it's been ineffective. It's a waste of our money. I think it's like less than 1% of our budget, but like whatever. The problem is our middle class has also been shrinking since 1980. And our schools are funded locally, mostly through like property taxes and other local taxes. And so when our schools get less funding because people are making less money, the Department of Education, if anything, is keeping us evened out. But he still says we need to cut it. So they're not interested in that. There's been no healthcare proposition ever from Trump to try to move towards like a positive way. Personally, I would want to like create some kind of a public option and let people decide which one is better. See how that works out. If it doesn't work out, we still have private infrastructure. The only thing he did is in the first term, he said he's going to fix healthcare. He came in and he made it worse. We have Obamacare, which is basically not a perfect way to do some form of universal healthcare. And one of the things that we did is that we would punish people through increased taxes if they didn't get healthcare, because young, healthy people technically don't need healthcare. But the idea is so that they pay into the system now to help old people, but then when they get older, that favor will be returned by young people. And he removed that. That's all he did. The only thing he did was remove that. That's the only thing that he did to it. And while it's nice for young people to not have to take on an economic burden, it makes healthcare more expensive overall. A huge part of the expense, too, is that we're still engaging with private companies instead of creating our own public company, like a government-run company that could compete with private companies. But like that's all he did with healthcare. He never tried to solve it. He never did anything particularly positive. From my understanding, he also cut some caps on different medications that are making seniors, medications more expensive. So he's not positive for healthcare. He's not positive for education. And at the end of the day, could we have used that money for other things? Maybe. But also when he came in his first presidency, he just deficit spent. He inflated our deficit by 50% when he came in. Obama cut the deficit in half. Obama inherited like the Great Recession. So like he's not interested in getting our deficit. He says that he is, but he's not interested in doing anything when it comes to like meaningfully and reasonably getting a hold of money. Because then when you look at, he has this whole Doge thing, which has been lying about a lot of the money they've been saving, which is why they've been silently retracting it. But he cut a bunch of inspector generals who have saved hundreds of billions of dollars for the American people by auditing. And I'm not saying don't do more auditing, but he's just cutting to make it seem like he's doing a lot, but they have to pull back on a lot of their cutting. That's why they're like calling people up that they fired saying, you need to come back. We've been having crashes when it comes to like the FCC, what was it, FCC? Jesus Christ, air traffic controllers. We had issues. There already aren't enough people. He fired a bunch of air traffic controllers. He's not really interested in helping. He's interested in making it look like he's doing a lot, and that's one of I think the biggest problems.
Okay, no, that's definitely a fair assumption.
No, sorry for info dumping on you.
Oh no, you're all good, man. Like honestly, I have a paper to write, and that kind of just helped.
All right, well, I appreciate that, and thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, no, dude. Thank you very much for having me on, and I appreciate your content.
Yeah, thank you, man. Take care.
Thank you. You as well.
Peace. What's going on, brother?
Thank God, man. Super excited to be here.
I've seen you advocating for yourself. I can respect that. I can respect that.
Thank you.
So what's going on? Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have a lot of strong opinions on conflicts in the world in general, especially when it comes to ones that affect like lives of my family members, myself, and my friends.
Okay, fair enough.
When it comes to specifically the war in Ukraine, there's just a lot of global policies that have been put in place for many years that have been putting Russia in a very particular position of a very difficult position to begin with.
Okay, like what?
I mean the existence of NATO as a whole, besides the idea of okay, I can understand, dude. I'm not a fucking fan of Russia, dude.
Well, you know what I'm going to say when you bring up NATO being something that threatens the existence of Russia. I'm going to say, why would it threaten the existence of Russia? It's just a military agreement that if somebody tries to
that if Russia, I mean specifically, it's for if Russia fucking invades. All right.
Like, yeah. Well, yes, because Russia has a tendency to invade. So I don't see how it puts pressure on a country to say, hey, if you invade somebody, we're all going to stick together and not let you do it. I don't think
100%. No, I understand. I understand that. I think that when it comes to a nation like Russia, when you're giving them fuel for the fire to act like the victim, and these terrible dictators, dude, that have the ability to manipulate their people and take control. Making themselves the victim, the people the victim. Like, for example, the Treaty of Versailles, right? A big positioning point for Hitler was talking about how the Germanic people were victimized after World War I.
Well, another problem is that we let them take land and then have it and hope that they would fuck off, and they never did. And so
Agreed.
Right. So that's probably the bigger issue is letting
the appeasement of the dictator. 100%.
Sure, yeah, that's a problem.
Also, you have to walk that fine line because I bring up the point again of how the Treaty of Versailles completely. I'm not trying to swear, but it screwed over the German people. All right, right.
Okay.
As a whole, it painted.
Yeah, but we're not. So okay, I'm not a huge history buff. Treaty of Versailles is like after World War I. No, like the agreements and how much. Yeah, we financially bankrupt them. Do you think that we have policies that financially bankrupt Russia?
No. However, I'm saying in the same scope of what I'm saying, where we gave Hitler the fuel to rise to power. The Western allies gave Hitler that power because we made the people, the strong German people, like the general fucking population. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about.
I guess I understand what you're saying. I just think that the circumstances were much more exaggerated when it came to Germany. You know, I don't think we're putting some kind of horrific financial pressure on Russia. Generally speaking, we trade with them, we buy oil from them, we are trade partners to an extent. I think that like they, as a country that is run by a murderous dictator that wants to overextend his reach. And we have to kind of come to terms with that, and we just have to fight against that. I don't really see how we could back down from that, because more death will come from being weak against Russia. Because if they feel strong enough, they'll push through Europe and start World War III.
So one of Putin's big ideas that he has, one of his big goals that he's had his entire dictatorship, I mean presidency, whatever the hell you want to call it, right? It's a dictatorship.
Definitely dictatorship, yeah.
No, I'm with you there. Has been restoring to the Soviet Union's power, right? And sure. So what I'm saying is that when you give these dictators the position to where they can act themselves as the victim, it empowers them to more.
All right. What would you do? What would be your counter argument? Like, what would you do to stop this problem?
So number one, when it comes to complete condemnation of the invasion of Ukraine, right? And that's something that the United States has done and set forth and has done what we've done, right?
Sure,
I agree with it to a certain extent.
Okay.
But I would also do what bringing Trump involved was bring up the fact that this does affect us, right, on a world stage, but
Sure.
the European nations as a whole. I have many friends in Ireland, some in Finland, some in Poland. And even from their basic standpoint, they're like, it's kind of fun that America's footing the bill, right? I have friends who are javelin missilemen in the Marine Corps, and them specifically, they have less rockets to train with because they're going to Ukraine.
Okay.
So
you're saying in America we have less rockets because they're going to Ukraine?
Yes, and
I don't know if I'll ever believe that. We spend so much money on our military. There's no way that we don't have replacements.
Well, there's so much wasted military funding. That's a different subject.
Sure, but I don't think we're running out of rockets. Just to be clear.
The basic point of mine is that I think that Europe as a whole should be doing more than they are. 200.
How much do you think that they should do?
I mean, 2, 3, 4 times what they're doing now, especially on defense spending. That's one thing that France has really been picking
4
up.
times? So you're saying that they should pay like 90% of the cost of like the money that goes to Ukraine?
Well, I'm talking countries as a whole. I mean,
but as a whole, the EU is giving has given 60% of the money to Ukraine,
and us as one country, even though the economics
but it's different because like we're one country, but like if you split our states up, those would be countries compared to
Agreed.
The European Union.
I mean,
so like it's not from like a GDP perspective, we're giving pretty much on par with everybody else, less than some countries.
I mean, I still just don't think that. When you take it to you break it down to the basic bread. I get it. I have more bread, so I must give more bread to the people who need it, right? I mean, I agree with that.
We also have more world influence, and we try for that. And part of that world influence is getting trade deals with countries that will trust us to defend them if somebody else turns against them.
Yeah,
and so this puts us in a significantly positive area when it comes to trading with any country in the entire world.
Yeah, and the United States has always put it into positions where it polices itself the world police.
So that's how we are able to like go in and have influence over countries and get trade deals and have positive trade alliances because we position ourselves like that. We benefit significantly from that.
100%. So Papa God, I got a question for you.
All right.
So I was just mindlessly doom scrolling the other day, and I came across.
Wait, hold on. Are we moving on from the?
No, this is Ukraine.
Okay.
And I had someone put this out there, and so I'm not taking credit for it, but they put the idea out there of let's say that Russia put a missile base in Mexico.
Okay.
How do you think that the United States would respond?
We probably wouldn't be too happy about it.
Agreed.
Okay.
How do you feel about the largest Air Force base in Europe being in Germany? How we have landing pads in Turkey? How we have we dude, I mean,
I
I'm all
think
for
that
a
at any
military
point,
edge.
yeah, I think that at any point Russia could join forces with us, Western forces, if they wanted to, and they wanted to move their country towards a more Western, more affirming country. They could just do that. They're not excommunicated from their ability to be allies with us and Western allies at that. They just refuse to. So I
I mean,
don't.
I think they is a broad thing. I think
The Russian government is
Putin and
who
his
I'm talking
oligarchs.
about.
Putin and
Okay,
his
still,
oligarchs.
it doesn't really matter. I mean, they've centralized power in a dictatorship, and they don't like us because we threaten that. You know, like I'm not super sympathetic to them at all. I mean, I imagine the reason we put military bases there is because Russia's always threatening, clearly, to invade other countries and try to take.
That was one of the biggest. That was one of the stupidest things about pulling out of Afghanistan. Is now we have no presence down there. It was weird, but whatever. But I digress.
Mhm.
But the I don't know, man. I think that it's about time that we really put other countries up to bat when it comes to.
I feel like that perspective comes. We're not very close to them because like literally like geographically, and I think a lot of people say that because like, oh, they're closer, it's not a problem for us, but it will be a problem for us. Those are our greatest
People
allies.
in Europe don't think they're close.
They are. What?
No, I know. My in-laws have a child from Spain as an exchange student, and he said, why would I care about the war in Ukraine? It's so far away, and he couldn't understand. That's like living in Texas and there being a war in Michigan, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, the European people have that same opinion, and they are right there.
I don't think that's true. I know maybe some of the people that you're talking to have that opinion, but the general European Union has the opinion that they need to fund Ukraine. It doesn't seem like a particularly unpopular idea over there. And the United States has been helping because we are their allies, and it threatens us as well, because that could threaten a World War III, which would threaten our trade and threaten our ability to succeed, thrive, and police the world if we allow Russia to feel emboldened to push through Eastern Europe. So I don't think that's true. I think so far I've heard a few different talking points from you that we threaten their sovereignty somehow with NATO, that it's too much money.
Not sovereignty. I think we're giving the dictators the victim mentality to be able to continue their abuse.
I disagree. I think that they're going to look for an excuse regardless. Honestly, I think that like for reasonable people, maybe if they were reasonable, what you're saying makes sense. But like Russia is very clearly unreasonable. They don't have any value for their own people. They're willing to let them die in military excursions to try to overstep their boundaries and take over other countries. There's really no reasoning you can do with Russia, and I think the more reasoning we try to do, it's the more insane that we're acting, because this is not a normal thinking. Dictatorship. It's not a normal thinking, group. Specifically the Russian government. So we're not going to win trying to reason with them. We've tried 100 times before. They've broken 25 ceasefires. They're clearly a threat to the world. They're a threat to the Western world, which is like the greatest advocation for individual rights ever. So I really don't see how we can. I really just don't see us. I think I wouldn't back down to them. I mean, it just sounds like we're talking about backing down. The unfortunate reality is we have to stand strong against them, or they're going to try to take over the world.
You think that Russia has the capabilities to do something like that?
I think Russia desperately wants to do something like that. Whether they can succeed in taking over the entire world, doubtful. But I think that they would try to. They're trying to push through Europe. They're not going to just stop. Poland is very well aware that they're going to go for them next if something like that happens. And they do have some alliances with some other countries. And regardless of whether they can or can't do that, they're going to try. And it's going to start a massive world war with nuclear weapons this time.
100%. I mean that's obviously fucking worst case scenario, right?
Yeah, well, that is the scenario. If we allow them to feel emboldened, that's what will most likely happen.
See, I mean, so when I hear that seems to be like a lot of the narrative that I'm hearing. But yeah. I mean, mutually assured destruction has prevailed for many years. And when it comes to the fact that I think that when a lot of people are toting that kind of narrative, it kind of,
so if mutually assured destruction
more towards fear mongering rather than the most likely.
If you think mutually assured destruction is going to stop World War III from happening, then it doesn't really matter if we piss off Russia, because they're never going to shoot their nukes, right? So we might as well fight against them to protect the sovereignty of our allies.
No, that's not what I'm saying, brother. That's not what I'm saying.
Well, you're saying that you don't think nuclear weapons would never come to nuclear arms. That's what you're saying.
World War III does not necessarily equate to nuclear weapons.
I think it heavily does, but like either way, World War III could happen. And I think it would happen if we are too weak against Ukraine. I mean, too weak against Russia.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not proposing back down. I'm more taking a stance on us as the United States need to not necessarily take an isolationist point of view, but on kind of take a back seat for a little bit.
I don't think so. I think we need to give money and for free, no loans. Give them money, let them fight for their sovereignty. They're doing us a favor.
No loans, dude. Even when they were fighting the
Fuck that.
Nazis, we were selling France and Great Britain arms.
Yeah, we sell them arms as it is. Like, we give them the money and then we send our weaponry over there. Yeah, I don't care about loans. We're part of a union now. You know, the Western world. Fuck loans. Let them cripple Russia through Russia trying to bang their heads against the wall. They're doing us a service. If those people want to fight and die, let them have as much money as possible for them to do that as effectively as possible.
Okay.
They're doing us a favor. No Americans are dying. No Americans are dying. I think that's great.
That's a major disagreeing point for me, brother.
Listen, fucking internal war until Russia fucks off. That's my hardline perspective on the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, at some point, it's going to stop being arms and money, and it's going to be troops.
I think that, again, if we pull back, that makes Russia feel like they can try to sweep through Europe, and then we will have to put troops on the ground. World War III starts, in my opinion, if we weaken up right now.
They don't have the capabilities to.
They've already taken over 20% of Crimea, 20% of Ukraine. They have the capabilities to push, and without us, they will be weaker because they will have less money and weaponry. And so, I think that without us, it's not going to help. It's going to make Russia feel empowered to move. It's not just about us not giving them funding, because if Trump decides to buddy up with Russia, which he already has, it's not just about not giving money. Now it's also, hey, stay out of the conflict for a while, at least under his presidency.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to resort back to history because you said that's not a strong point, and I don't want to
Well, historically, placating dictators has caused other world wars.
Yeah, I'm not talking about appeasement. I'm talking about how supply lines, manpower. I mean, there's been no physical capabilities for anybody to be able to outstretch themselves as one nation and be able to successfully contain.
How much of Europe do you think that Russia would have to take over before you feel like that's too much and we'd have to stop them?
Ukraine. I mean, dude, I'm
so
not.
So why are you arguing against them taking over parts of Ukraine? I'm very confused.
Because there are other allies who it impacts more that aren't.
Listen, I can appreciate what you're saying. The problem is that throughout this argument, it hasn't been hey, I think they need to step up and make money. That's been one of your arguments. But you also said that that we've been poking the bear and giving them a reason to be victims. And you're giving me a lot of different talking points as to why it's not just the money. It's also because optically we kind of threaten them and. It seems like you are a little more pro or maybe anti-Ukraine or pro-Russia than you're leading on. I think that you've been giving me a lot of different arguments why we shouldn't back our Ukrainian allies.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have to kind of pull my tongue. Everyone has. I'm not trying to be kind of seem like crazy. I'm just saying that I think that there's a lot of 90% of Americans, I believe, fall in the middle. I really hope that's true.
Probably. I think most people don't care about foreign conflict in general, but I would say...
So my views on Ukraine are very split in the middle when it comes to that.
Yeah. I think it's okay to not necessarily care too much. That's fine. But I wouldn't run defense for Russia. If you're I don't really care, I'd rather not go over there because it's a waste of money, that's fine. But I wouldn't give so much defense to Russia because we've gone beyond, hey, it's expensive, and into the new argument of hey, I think Russia kind of has a reason to invade. And that's where I think things get sketchy.
Yeah, that makes sense, man.
All right. But I appreciate the chat, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, huge fan. Thank
you. I appreciate that. Take care, all right? Peace. All right. That was a good conversation.
Hey, yeah, sorry, I was changing some of the volume settings.
No problem. What's up?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm a newer fan. Started following after your Daniel Green breakdown. It was very
that's recent. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, after I saw that, I started listening and watching some videos, saw that your political views were more or less aligned with mine. One thing I haven't really seen folks talking about that I'd like to get your take on is the changes in cybersecurity practices, specifically the weakening of our defenses through CISA being cut down, Russia's offensive capabilities no longer being checked by what was the foremost cybersecurity entity in the world, one of the top 5 for sure. And how our data being stolen
Is
or
that
being
something that's
accessed.
under Trump, or is that something that's been happening for a
Yes.
while?
Yeah. Well, it's been happening for a while, but I'd say it's going to be accelerated. I mean, back in 2013 or so, Cambridge Analytica started harvesting user data from Facebook.
Okay.
Now you add something like XAI or Grok or another generative AI, you feed it all of that user data, and use that to influence people, influence elections. We saw with the Rohingya genocide in Myanmar, Facebook was
Interesting.
critical in
Yeah,
getting
I'm
people
listening
to.
while I'm reading into it, and it does seem like Trump has cut infrastructure for cybersecurity, which is
Yeah,
extraordinary. I never even knew about this. This is actually pretty
yeah.
dangerous.
I work in cybersecurity. I've been in the industry for 10 years. I've
Okay.
seen firsthand cyber attacks from Russia, from China on critical infrastructure.
Hmm.
And CISA, Trump was instrumental in making CISA the entity that it was as of 5 months ago, 3 months ago.
In what capacity? Like how he created it,
It,
like in a positive way? Is that what you're saying?
so CISA is an amalgamation of a few different organizations that were broken up. US CERT, CISA itself, they were splintered. They got put together under DHS to do a couple things. One was to ensure all federal agencies are um, to help enhance their own cybersecurity practices,
Okay.
but also to do outreach to public sector, private sector organizations, universities, small towns, things like that to help them. They do free vulnerability scanning, they do pen tests, they do a bunch of things that really help organizations that can't really do this stuff otherwise. Um, so all of that was in direct response to the growing threat from China and Russia and all that.
Interesting.
Um, But with them being neutered, with Russia's cyber space activity being unchecked, with our data being harnessed and fed into generative AI, it just seems like we're heading down a road where digital spaces will be weaponized to be used against people, whereas right now we have some modicum of freedom.
Interesting. I honestly had no idea that because I'm looking as you're talking, I'm looking into this and looking at like the explanations. I had no idea that he gutted this infrastructure, and there's like so much on it. Um, so I have like I don't have actually a very strong opinion. I mean, I have a strong opinion. I just don't have an informed opinion like about the specifics.
Yeah,
But like obviously
yeah.
this is bad. This is probably the biggest way that we fight wars nowadays is through
Hmm.
really some form of propaganda. I guess you could say. Really, the internet is huge. I mean,
Yep.
he got elected in his first term because of Russia,
Yep.
actively trying to get him, whether he was working with them or not, they actively wanted him to be president of the United States. And obviously, we could see why. He's very weak on Russia. He lets them get away. He downplays their genocidal and warmongering tendencies. So I didn't even know about this. This is a massive threat to the United States, and it's just another thing that confirms that Donald Trump is like a Russian asset to me.
Yeah.
That's actually fucking insane. Do you know what it was like in the first term? Like, were you
Yep.
like, how did he do in his first term? Was it the same, or was it like neutral, or
No. He was actually cybersecurity is one of the few things he was good about. I mean, the
interesting?
other one was animal abuse. I think those are the couple good things he did. But no, he really strengthened America's cybersecurity, our security posture.
Interesting.
Um, but this is a complete 180 in
That's very
the
interesting.
worst direction you could go.
Yeah, no, for real. I mean, I can imagine. This is. I'm assuming. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him talk about it. I may imagine that one of the reasons is because he thinks everything is a hoax. So that's why I have no idea. Well, I mean, really, I imagine. I wonder why. I mean, probably because I don't think he has anybody around him that tries to keep him in check. The first term that he came in, he at least kind of had people around him that would be able to reel him in and be a little more realistic in his expression. Now I think he's just fully fucking like conspiracy brained, and so now he's just like, oh fuck it, let's cut this. We can save money, quote unquote, which I don't think it's going to save us money in the long run anyway. And then he's also warm to Russia anyway. So Jesus Christ, I wonder if he hates America because he feels like he was treated poorly in his first election.
People were very down on him after January 6th. So
Yeah, well, do you mean down on him in like a good way or a bad way? Like they hate
bad
him?
way. Down as in, this dude riled up a a mob to.
Oh, like they're down with him in like a positive way for
Yeah.
them. They're like, yeah, we love this
No,
guy.
no. Well, I mean,
I've
I'm
seen
sure
a
some
lot of
were
people.
down,
Like, we
but-
got voted in regardless, so I'm surprised.
Yeah,
I feel
well.
like people. He's captured the hearts and minds of people with intellectual disabilities. So
we forget very quickly.
well, I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. It was something I'm gonna have to look into off stream. Did you have anything else you wanted to bring up or talk about?
No, not really. This is a topic like you saw, not many people are aware of, and with how intertwined our physical lives have become with our digital lives, this kind of threat is just massive.
I talk a lot about like technology displacing jobs and driving down wages, but I never really
Mm-hmm.
talk too much about like the disinformation campaigns and misinformation campaigns that can be pushed through cybersecurity to the same degree. But like, absolutely, it is very intertwined with our lives. I agree with that 100%. So thank you for bringing this topic to my attention.
Yep. Thank you. Keep doing what you do.
Thank you. Take care. How you doing?
For the record, the acknowledged me was not being a dick. It was a Roman Reigns reference.
Okay. Well, I did acknowledge.
But
what do you got for me?
yeah. All right. So just real quick, I kind of got a couple things to rapid fire at you for a
All
second.
right. Let's
First of all,
hear it.
you are the first streamer I've ever watched. I've never seen another streamer. I'm almost 30.
Oh, thank you.
You've become my favorite content creator.
Wait, welcome to being terminally online. Okay.
There are a few things that I just don't get about you, sir.
Oh, Jesus.
So I'm going to hit you with the hard hitting questions first.
All right.
My first question, why the fuck do you always say, what is their intentionality? Instead of saying, what were their intentions? It drives me up a wall.
I don't know. That's just the way I talk, brother. That's just my intentionality. It's how I talk. It's how I learned. It's my vocal fry, we'll call it. All right.
Yeah, that was just the warm up. I'm getting to the harder hitting stuff now. I have another.
Let's hear it. Hit me harder.
This one's not the last one. I have actually a differing opinion from you. This one, I kind of just want your answer on. You call yourself an ethnic Jew a lot.
Yeah, I'm Ashkenazi. Yeah,
and I'm pretty I'm from Michigan, right outside Dearborn, actually. So I don't think I've ever even met a Jewish person. So I don't know if this is like
you won't
rude,
even know. We hide amongst the whites, you know.
But what does ethnic Jew mean? Because I did see something, and I just wanted to ask you about this to confirm it, because I saw somebody saying that was like super anti-Semitic and used to like from the Nazis. It was like a thing with the Nazis saying it's in your blood.
Yeah.
And I was just confused.
Well, when the Nazis say it's in your blood, it's because they don't like Jews. There's like ethnic, there's a race, a Jewish race, and also a religion. There's two. I will say one of the things, the most significant thing that being ethnically Jewish means to me is I have Tourette's, which is like apparently higher prominence inside of Jewish people. So, so I have a lot of tics. Mostly, if people watch close enough, they can see them.
Don't worry, they're cute.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm
usually at the bottom right corner, so it's harder to see, you know?
Yeah. The last one I wanted to ask you about, this is actually something that I don't know if disagrees is the right word, but I would like for you to hear me out for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Yesterday, I'm so exhausted to hear, and I care about it, but the Gaza and Israel stuff. So I didn't tune into your whole stream yesterday, but you did say a couple things. Yeah, you did say a couple things that like stuck in my head that I can't believe I actually got in here to ask you it because you had said something, and I agree with you about the empathy being hard to find for people from such a different culture and area or whatever.
Sure, yeah, I think I said that a while ago, but that generally is part of the conversation, sure.
But on yesterday's stream, you had said that you'd mentioned how there's not as much attention given to like Arab on Arab conflicts.
Yeah.
And I felt like the only reason I wanted to ask you about it is because I like you and I wanted to hear how you felt about this. Is the way that stuck out to me was it kind of seemed like antithetical to everything else you say in terms of like the West having the best culture and whatnot. Because like, yes, obviously I care more about Israel and Gaza than I do other Middle Eastern countries that I don't really know anything about.
Sure.
But the reason I feel like I should care about it is because you're right. Like Israel is the Western influence
Yeah, and you
in the
would
Middle
generally
East.
you're generally
Hold
going
them
to
to
hold them
a
to a higher
high,
standard. Yeah,
yeah,
usually when I talk about it, okay. Usually when I talk about Israel Palestine, I try to talk about it with multiple factors. One of the things I do say is that like a bigger reason why people care is because it is a Western country, and you should care, by the way. But it's
yeah,
a Western country with Western influence, and you should hold them to a higher standard. But when you're sitting over here or you're in Europe, it's very easy to go, hey, look, Israel is horrible, because compared to every other Western country, they're horrible. But when they're
right.
compared to every other Eastern country, they're probably better than most other Eastern countries when it comes to like human rights, generally speaking. That's not trying to downplay the atrocities going on in Gaza. I think that Netanyahu's
Right.
gone like full war criminal.
And
But
that's my thing is, don't you
yeah,
think that's kind of a bad look on America for like
maybe
supply? Because we see, like, I understand what you're saying. Like, there's a conflict to be had. There's sides to it and whatnot.
sure.
But like the war crimes and like the stuff, like Netanyahu seems to be a pretty fucking dastardly dude.
The point that I'm trying to make more is that we should have higher standards for them because we give them money, obviously, and they're a Western country. But when you're surrounded by a bunch of other countries who have a completely different standard, or we're
Yeah.
held to a different standard, I could see why there are some issues, if that makes sense. My point is, I'm trying to get people to understand a lot of different aspects of it. I'm not sitting here saying what they're doing is okay. What I'm sitting here saying is a lot of people have a lot of energy against Israel, and it's to the point where some people don't think Israel should exist, which I think is problematic.
Right.
And I think
Naturally.
that a lot of those people are very left leaning, and a lot of those people are very focused on this conflict, what they should be, but they're not very focused on other conflicts, where it's Arab people killing other Arab people, or oppressing their human rights. And it's just like, there is that double standard, and I think that you should consider that if you are a humanitarian.
Okay. See, now that, like I said, I figured, because I tend to kind of agree with you. You just seem to hold a lot of the same views as me. So really, I wasn't trying to like confront you or call you out on it.
No,
I
it's
just wanted
fine.
you to articulate it
Well, that's the
more
whole point of this
because,
live, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, because to me, like in that moment, hearing it, it just seemed like you were saying the complete opposite of the things that you say about like Ukraine and whatnot. So I figured if I got the chance to speak to you about it, I would come to more of like a rational conclusion of it, and you articulated it a lot better here than what I
Yeah.
caught yesterday.
A lot of the stuff we talk about is controversial, especially if you pop in the middle of a stream. Sometimes like it can get lost. It can be very difficult.
I'd be first one in every
Oh
stream.
shit! Okay, well, I do appreciate you holding me to task and popping in. All right.
I appreciate that. Last thing is I discovered you 10 minutes after my daughter was born, and I sat in the hospital just scrolling through your whole TikTok feed. That's why you were the first streamer. So congratulations.
Well,
you put my daughter to sleep for the first time.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment. God bless and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. You have a good day.
You too. Take care.
I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, me too, man. Take care.
Yep. Bye.
What's up? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What's going on, man?
Okay. How you doing? I just kind of want to talk to you about my personal story with the election. This was the first election I was able to vote in, just because I missed the deadline for the 2020 election by like a couple months. But I wanted to kind of talk about, like, I never was going to vote for Trump, but I think if I wasn't like an economics major and knew like what tariffs were, and if I didn't watch you, I think it would have been like very easy for me to get manipulated into thinking, like, especially after the assassination attempt. I was like,
it was
into like,
it was a pretty badass moment.
It really riled me up, you know, and I was like,
it speaks to you in a more animalistic way. He was kind of a badass.
Yeah.
Moment, I gotta, part of me is like, oh man, did he orchestrate that? But there's no way. Like, that's just like the conspiracy theorist of me. But yeah, I get that. Listen, here's the thing. I understand because, it's just something to keep in mind. Being a conservative and voting Republican is very hand in hand with really edgy memes and like funny, being a little funnier in my opinion. So I can see why a young person would gravitate towards more conservatism, especially since you're going to see some edgy memes and then you're going to see quote unquote based take from some conservative content creator.
Right.
So I totally understand that.
But I was just like, I kind of wanted to ask you, like, I think from that perspective, I could see kind of like the emotional appeal of like voting for Trump. And I just felt like, I get like Kamala did not have a lot of time, but I felt like there was just so many opportunities to just kind of dunk on Trump for like the stupid shit that he said before in the past, and like, God, just kind of pressing on things. And I felt like it felt very weird. It felt like everyone was kind of playing along with his like policies, and I was like very like upset that like no one was really just saying like, at least on like a political stage, that like this is what a tariff will do in a way that like made sense to kind of like, I guess like those like
you educate the audience.
Voters,
I understand.
Like, I felt like no one was saying it like in a kind of a layman's term sense.
I think that I understand what you mean. I completely agree. I think that there was a weirdly too much focus on trying to match Trump's energy rather than trying to counter it productively. Like Trump did a really, the guy's defense, he did a really good job branding himself. Any criticism that he got is considered Trump derangement syndrome. If you stoop down to his level, you're considered beneath his level. He generally is a little wittier. He's a New Yorker. You got to give him that. And so instead of focusing on like, hey, how do we counterplay? Which I think would have been educating people like, hey, this is what this does. Hey, this is what we've been doing. Like, here's why we're right. This is wrong, but not coming at it with like an intense energy. Just being like, hey, this is just not right. They tried to, I think they've been scrambling to figure out like, how do they match a force like Donald Trump, a literal celebrity, charismatic celebrity that's willing to like really outright lie, not just lie the way that mainstream media lies, where they propose information in a disingenuous way, but like outright just make up numbers and just lie about the guy. And I don't think that they ever really fully figured out how to counter that. And so you have to kind of balance stooping down a little bit, getting them on a little bit, while also still engaging in, a level of intelligence, we'll say.
Yeah, no, I get that. And then my last kind of question for you was like, do you think that after Trump's 4 years, the MAGA movement will find a new person to kind of latch on to, or do you think it's like no one's going to be able to like match like Trump's energy and like keep it going?
There's nobody like Trump. Let's be real. There's nobody like Trump. Yeah. I don't ever. His sons are. Barron seems cool. His other older sons look like ugly rat fucks. Nobody's got his really has a charisma. So I think once Trump is gone, that's gonna kind of be the end of we'll call it aura, to be nice, But I think I don't think he's gonna stop being part of politics until he passes away, and that's not me hoping that he does. Just to be clear, because he did not stop. He's like the only president that did not honor the shut the fuck up policy. He was president in 2016. He lost. He didn't stop talking. He kept talking. He still had an influence, and a lot of the influence that he had was because a lot of conservatives know that they are kind of bound to what he says, and he still has a considerable amount of sway. Yeah. And so he comes out. He's still going to have that sway. Like we said before, he was able to get conservatives who proposed a bill to help the border under Biden to knock it down so we could run on it. Like, he has a considerable amount of power. He's able to have a lot of sway. So unless that aura is done away with in this cycle, which is possible, he's going to still be very prominent in the party. He's still going to be able to make moves. I mean, and I looked it up the other day. Apparently, he could still run as vice president. So that's insane. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think the only way to kind of shut down, I think the stock market is really going to sway a lot of people, because that's like the rich people who vote for him, where it's like no matter who they vote for, like their lives don't really change because they're just so wealthy. I think this is kind of an opportunity to be like, oh, like this is actually going to impact, people that are not, like, for lack of a better term, like poor white people in southern states. And I think that if the Democrats can kind of latch on, like, look, we just lost trillions of dollars in the stock market because this guy just wants to fuck around and play with tariffs because he thinks they're cool. Yeah, I think that would be the opportunity to kind of dunk on him for that.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to see. People. It seems like some people are starting to wake up and be like, "Hey, this is kind of fucked up," especially people who support veterans. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, good talking to you.
Yeah, good talking to you too, man.
You
too. Take care.